Welcome back. Now, one of the key issues facing whoever becomes Turkey's next president is EU membership. It's in process, but there are some issues that remain sticking points. High up on the list, criticism of Turkey's human rights record on torture and freedom of expression, claims of discrimination against minority groups such as the Kurds, and Turkey's refusal to open its ports and airports to Cyprus, an EU member. And there are other problems. Turkey recognizes the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, an enclave within Northern Cyprus, not recognized by any other country. And finally, less than half of Turks support EU membership. Mr. Kalin, why do so few Turks support this membership?
Well, we have to say that actually that's a number we have now, but 2 years ago, a year and a half ago actually, in October of 2005, when we got the date for EU accession talks, support for EU was about 80% in Turkey. And one has to ask why that number has dropped to what it is now, that is about 40%, definitely below 50%. And I think Europeans have made a lot of mistakes in the process. They have given very negative messages to Turkey. They have appeared to be very confused about the enlargement process of EU, and they emphasize this enlargement fatigue. But that issue comes up every time Turkey's EU membership is discussed, and that has sent very negative messages to the larger public in Turkey. And the government, civil society institutions, writers, columnists, journalists, I mean the elite of the society have supported this process, but every time you try to make a case for Turkey's EU membership, the culturalist argument comes back. That is, it's not the Turkish economy, it's not the Turkish judicial system, it's not the Turkish political system, but it's Turkey's cultural, religious identity that is at issue. And we heard the statements from Mr. Sarkozy, from Mrs. Merkel, and many other European politicians, and these are very high-level people. I think, put all these things together, this explains why the number has gone down so low.
Mrs. Robinson, do you agree that Europe is to blame?
Absolutely. I think Europe has handled it abysmally. I also think, though, I mean, let's be realistic, this is never going to be an election winner. People in Europe are losing their jobs and they blame it on globalization, rightly or wrongly. They blame it on extra immigration. And therefore, it's too hard for most politicians, and many of whom, if you look at most European governments, you've got coalitions or you've got very small majorities. It's very difficult for a politician to go against that.
So if Mr. Erdogan were to become president, Turkey's chances will remain the same?
I would say a bit worse, talking about, what image that gives out. And also, what you've got to realize is what he's done with the economy and has been so wonderful. As as was pointed out, foreign direct investment is at record highs. In fact, in 2000, I think it was 2004, it was the equivalent in that 1 year of 10 years, the 10 years before, all added up together. I think there'd be a fear that he wouldn't be in charge anymore, and he has the westernized elite in Turkey is perhaps a bit ambivalent about him, but when I talked to them, and I interviewed the president in December, when I talked to this elite, they were terribly positive. They said, when he first got in, we were all afraid of some sort of a hidden agenda, but what we've seen is he's brought stability and he's allowed us to develop our business with foreigners, and it's worked tremendously well for both the business elite and for Turkey in general.
Okay, but still at issue for the EU in particular is Turkey's human rights abuses, accusations of that, and the role of the army. Dr. Coney, do you see the army downscaling its role to gain ascension within the EU?
Or there's a rising nationalism because of the European attitudes. For example,